Much. We turn now to brand new polling numbers from NBC News and Marist College released at the top of this hour that show Bernie Sanders overtaking Hillary Clinton in the race for the Democratic nomination in New Hampshire and closing in on her in Iowa. Let's take a look at New Hampshire first. 49% of likely Democratic voters surveyed say they are voting for Bernie Sanders, giving him a 9-point lead over Hillary Clinton at 38%. The rest of the field is in low single digits. Now, take a look at how these numbers compare to July, the last time NBC News and Marist conducted a poll in New Hampshire. Hillary Clinton down 9 points in the Granite State in the last 2 months, Sanders gaining 15 points. And here are the results if Joe Biden is in the picture. With Joe Biden in the race, Bernie Sanders still holds the lead. 41% saying Sanders would get their vote, 32% saying they would support Clinton, and Joe Biden pulling support near equally from Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, finishing with 16%. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton maintains her lead in Iowa, carrying 48% of support, Bernie Sanders with 37%. Hillary's lead is down 29 points since July, Clinton falling 7 points and Sanders gaining 11. With Joe Biden in the race, he pulls 10 points equally from Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Clinton is still in the lead with 38%, Sanders with 27%, and Biden with 20%. Let's bring in Mark Murray, senior political editor at NBC News, for the takeaway here for Hillary Clinton. Mark, thanks for being here. What are we seeing in these numbers?
Well, Jonathan, I think that you're seeing the toll the last 2 months has taken on Hillary Clinton, particularly regarding the email story. Some of the other numbers were showing that in Iowa, her favorability rating went from 74% in July to 67% in this most recent poll. That's a drop of 7 points. And it just shows you that even among Democrats, her numbers are starting to lag a little bit. And I think that you can end up looking at just the dominant story that has followed Hillary Clinton over the last 2 months, and it's been about her emails or a former IT staffer pleading the fifth. When you look at the other issue matrix, the other Democrats in the field, it's excitement about Bernie Sanders' crowds, or you end up having speculation of Joe Biden entering the race. But beyond emails, I'd actually argue there's one other explanation of what's going on here, is that establishment candidates, either on the Democratic or Republican side, are having a very difficult time. And I know we're going to get to the Republican numbers, but just worth noting that in Iowa, you add up Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and Carly Fiorina, the 3 Republican outsiders who've never held elected office before, and that gets you to 56% of the vote in Iowa. And so what I do think is that the establishment candidates are having a very, very tough time right now. The outsiders are doing really well. And one other final point, Jonathan, is worth noting that August and September polling doesn't always end up reflecting what's going to end up happening in Iowa and the New Hampshire contest. We have a very long way to go. It was back in 2003 at this time. Howard Dean was the star of the Democratic Party. And just 4 years ago, it was Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry dominating the Republican conversation in that race. Things can certainly change.
Right. Well, you know, Mark, you brought it up. Talk more about what's happening on the Republican side of the race.
Yeah, and so Donald Trump is leading both in Iowa and in New Hampshire, Jonathan. In Iowa, he's ahead by 7 points over Ben Carson, 29% to 22%. But again, you add up those two percentages and you get to 51%. Then you have to go all the way down and see Jeb Bush at 6%. Again, another sign that the establishment just isn't having a very good time and didn't have a very good summer. And then in the race for New Hampshire, Jonathan, you end up having Donald Trump up once again. He's at 28% among Republicans in New Hampshire. Second place, and this is very interesting, it's Ohio Governor John Kasich, who's at 12%. A couple other things worth noting. Look at the percentages for Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and Scott Walker in these Iowa and in New Hampshire, all in the mid to low single digits. And just emphasize one more time, all the people we thought were going to be the big front runners in this race, and they still very well might be once we get to January and February, had a very rough summer.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Mark, stay with me. Let's bring in this morning's panel, political science professor Jason Johnson, Lynn Sweet with the Chicago Sun-Times, and former Republican Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, who is also working as a New York volunteer co-chair for Carly Fiorina's super PAC. Okay, what do we think about these numbers? And of course, we're talking about on the Democratic side.
Well, I think Mark Murray, hi Mark, you say, the shrinking of these numbers, I think, is who disagrees? It's the emails. What else do you hear about in the campaign right now? It's very hard for them to get above it. I know they're trying, and it's only going to get a little worse when Congress comes back.
Right.
And there's even more lawmakers to shine a spotlight on it. A lot of smart people are working in Brooklyn, and they have to, I think, be figuring out a way to address this. But here's what we know about Hillary Clinton. She has survived these episodes where people say, oh my God, you know, free fall and all that, and then she climbs back out. And if I may, and then I want to...
and then I'll hear from Jason.
Okay, the person who said it the best in asking the question, Andrea Mitchell, in her interview with Hillary Clinton on Friday, said, you know, you felt it slipping away in 2008. Do you feel that you might have it slip away again? And when Hillary Clinton says, Andrea, I don't see it like that, I think that spoke a lot.
The number I always look at, we look at Iowa in particular, because it's a caucus, not
right.
Very different from
people
a primary.
Sit in living rooms and hash this out.
You know, empty school gyms and church basements and stuff like that. It's the undecideds. Iowa has a tendency to break late. Okay, and as long as you've got, you know, 7 to 9% of the people who are undecided, I always think that in the case of somebody like Hillary Clinton, undecideds tend to break for the more well-known person, and they tend to break for the incumbent. And so what looks like maybe only a 7 or 10% lead that she's got right now could actually jump up to 15 by the time we get there if 3/4 of those undecideds end up breaking for her. So I wouldn't be that worried if I were in the Clinton campaign yet.
Well, I mean, if I were in the Clinton campaign, though, can we not forget the history from 2008? She lost Iowa.
Exactly.
Right. But Bernie Sanders isn't Barack Obama.
Okay.
Bernie is not Barack Obama under any circumstance. He doesn't have that charm. He doesn't have that grace. And remember, she's still got the South Carolina firewall.
You've got Biden and Warren waiting in the wings to rescue things, and I still...
You still think it's a Biden-Warren ticket?
Well, but because there was a recent poll of voters asking what's the first thing that comes to mind, as you know, when you think of Hillary Clinton. Dishonest.
Yes.
Untrustworthy, liar. There is this weirdness, and you see it on the Republican side too, and in a sense I think it's almost, there is a certain carryover effect from Hillary Clinton's bad image toward the Republican so-called professional politicians as well, which is why you see Donald Trump and Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina gaining such prominence, because there is this sense that she represents a cynical, manipulative, actually power-grabbing,
but while that's a very intense, negative, and cynical view of Secretary Clinton,
well,
but
the email controversy supports that.
But these numbers, do they encourage or discourage Vice President Biden, do you think, in his factoring whether he's going to run?
I still think it's too soon to tell, because there are many twists and turns to this. I'm sure no one in the Clinton campaign is pleased with this, because all this talk about Biden is a distraction from what she's trying to do. On the other hand, the only plus I could see, maybe it isn't a big one, the more talk about Biden, it might drown out the emails.
Right.
If I'm Biden, this doesn't really change anything for me. I mean, I take half from Hillary, I take half from Bernie Sanders. That still doesn't give me a pathway to victory. So if I were him, I'm still trying to work out my own numbers.
Okay, so there's something in the New York Times today in a story about Hillary Clinton's contingency plan if she loses Iowa or New Hampshire. And like I said before, she lost Iowa in 2008. She won New Hampshire in 2008. And the fact that she is now losing in the polls to Bernie Sanders, I think, is significant. But the New York Times writes, Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign is methodically building a political firewall across the South in hopes of effectively locking up the Democratic nomination in March, regardless of any early setbacks in the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary. And there's we have this map. The New York Times reporting the Clinton campaign targeting Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia.
Well,
I mean,
that's how do things?
But this gets to the question: how do things look for Bernie Sanders? He's on fire in New Hampshire. He's gaining ground in Iowa. But once you get down to those states I just read off, what happens to him?
Well,
Jonathan, look at the demographics. He's just not going to win down there.
Well, I'm not a naysayer. Let's give Bernie a chance. But let's remember also that the game is delegates, and Hillary Clinton knows how to count. She has Barack Obama's lawyer, who is the delegate counter. And the campaign did put out, was it a week ago, that they already have a big running start with those super superdelegates from the Democratic Party.
And Mark Murray, I haven't forgotten that you are there. I'm going to give you the last word. Any final thoughts from you?
You know, we've focused so much on Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, and certainly some of those numbers are very jaw-dropping. Again, I would just kind of look at where Jeb Bush and Scott Walker were in our July NBC mayor's poll on the Republican side in Iowa and New Hampshire. They were in double digits. You had Jeb Bush leading in New Hampshire. You ended up having Scott Walker leading in Iowa. And all of a sudden, those folks are now in single digits. And it's just worth reminding that we've focused a lot on Hillary Clinton. Yes, she's had a very, very tough summer. You can make the argument that Jeb Bush and Scott Walker have had even a more brutal summer than she's had.
I am with you on that. NBC News' Mark Murray, thanks very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Still ahead, the special visitor, jailed Kentucky clerk Kim Davis, is expecting this week. And next, the latest on the battle between Jeb Bush and Stephen Colbert.